Oh, hello, everyone. My name is George. Some of you already have met me online in previous online training sessions being held. Joining us today is a friend of ours, Swati Sharma, who, as you would have seen in the landing page that was used for you to join us, she's one of the most experienced people in admissions in Australia, in my opinion. Her experience started back in 90s, where she started working for IDP in Chennai, India. And then having moved to Australia mid-2000s, she started working for Macquarie University in the international admissions area. From there, later on, she moved to Western Sydney University, where she's been working in different roles over the time. And she's been helpful to give advice, not only to, of course, the university, but in Australia, she's collaborated a lot when it comes to being able to move things forward. So with that introduction, I'll hand it over now to Swati, who will be now taking you through an introduction over admissions. And as you would have seen again from the landing page where you register, a bit of training in this area for those of you that are not so familiar. That will be about half hour. And for the second part of today's session, she will be answering all of your questions. So use this opportunity to ask all the tricky questions, of course, because we only have, we have a really good chance of having someone very knowledgeable to give us a hand. Thank you very much, Swati, and it's all yours now.
Thank you, George, and thank you for the very kind introduction that you gave for me. I'm not sure about the most knowledgeable, but I'll try my best, guys. So hello, everyone. I am Swati. I used to work at Western Sydney University. I recently quit my job and I'm now working in India. Actually, haven't started working as an admissions area at the moment, but taking this opportunity to be of some service to everybody. So I think we'll just start the session. I've just prepared a few slides. It's not going to be a very lengthy talk that I have to give you. I'm aware that most of you are aware of what's happening in Australia, what's happening in international admissions sector, but it would be a kind of recap of a lot of things. And if some of you are new to this role, I guess, ask me questions if I'm going too fast for you. So let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow. I'm happy to change my pace accordingly. So really starting this masterclass for admissions, mainly because I have quite a bit of experience in admissions, having worked at Western Sydney for 10 years. And within these 10 years, I have seen so many changes that have happened in the international admissions area. What I would want you all to remember is that we would be looking at, something wrong with my slides. Pressed it too quickly. I apologize. But anyhow, so what I wanted to talk to you about was a few, common things that we all talk about these days. They're obviously, when you are counseling a student, there are choices to make for the students. The choices necessarily are based on where they want to go in Australia. We all know Sydney, Melbourne is the most popular destination for all of students coming from various parts of the world. We have about top 5 nationalities which make the bulk of our student population in Australia. And they all come from various assessment level countries. So the top ones, for example, the top 3, if I have to name, would be China, would be subcontinent, and would be Northeast Asia. So I'm hoping that these countries would be your top end markets as well. So if you have any other market that you want me to ask questions about, happy to answer those. China, as you know, is a level 1 country now. But being a level 1 country doesn't mean that you can just take it at its level face value and just say, okay, we just take any application coming from China and move on with it. You can't do that. Even in China, for example, you have areas, regions which would be slightly higher risk. So you have Fujian, Dalian, those kind of regions, where you've got to be a little, careful about the applicant. You have to look at more detail about the applicant before you can make a decision. At the same time, you also have to look at the assessment level of the institution. So we are looking at higher ed institutions, we are looking at vet providers, we're looking at ELICOS providers. What level are they sitting at? Are they a level 1 provider? Are they level 2 providers? Most of the institutions at the moment are sitting at 1 or 2. At a 1, it's very easy. If you combine the level 1 of institution and level 1 of the country, it's a very simple, easy assessment. Really means, it's a good application. It goes to the visa officer. They're going to look at it and say, okay, there are a few ticks. But like I said, even then, you need to be a bit careful about the applicant. You cannot just blindly take them on. Because even if they are making up the level 2 when combining the institution level and the country level, they may not have to provide a lot of documentation for finances and English and all of those things, but there would be regions which are a little high risk regions, which the Department of Immigration is going to look at. I want you all to be aware of the entry requirements that an institution has. So for example, because I come from a higher ed sector, I guess I would be talking a lot more about that. But what happens is, for a higher ed sector, I would always look at the student's background. Where are they coming from? What have they studied? Was there a gap in their studies? What is my entry requirement for a particular course? Does that student meet my entry requirement? Would that satisfy a visa officer to see that, okay, the student has done ABC course previously and now is progressing? So what I want you to understand is that by entry requirement doesn't just mean the university's entry requirement. You have to ensure that it's a progression in the right direction. The student is moving forward in his career or her career. English proficiency, of course, is another area which the department looks for. And as you know, there are different English requirements for vet providers and different English requirements for higher ed. A minimum we are looking at is a 6 for higher ed and a 5 for a vet provider. So make sure that the student has done that test and has done it as recently as possible. Although it does have a 2-year period, but I would still say try and get the student to take a test which is as recent as possible. There are various pathways that the students will be coming to study. You will be packaging offers. I'm not sure how many of you have partnered with universities or vet providers or with ELICOS providers to give a package offer to the student. But regardless of everything, there is one good thing that has come out of this whole SSVF is the visa subclass change, which is now a 500. So it doesn't matter whether you're coming for a vet course or a higher ed course, you are actually coming for a 500 visa anyways. Having been at the admissions end at an institution, I feel what an admissions unit really requires from a provider or a service provider like yourselves would be, a holistic kind of an application. So what they're looking from you is information about the student in complete sense. They are relying on you because you are representing them in front of that student. So you have the student sitting in front of you, but the institution doesn't. They have no idea. For them, it's just another paper or an online application. And they only make out it's a file. It's like there's a name and the date of birth and what they've done and blah, blah, blah. It's a very non-emotional, distant kind of an application. So the institutions actually rely on you to give them that kind of information where they can actually feel that they get a proper sense out of that application, if you understand what I'm saying. So just to kind of recap as to what the institutions need. You can see it on the screen, but I would like to talk about it really, because in my role, I always heard my office staff tell me that, oh, there are so many other things that, are missing, or I cannot make a decision with this application, or, it takes too much toing and froing because I'm lacking that information. So please submit a complete application. Make sure everything is answered in that application. There's a reason why they ask you all of those questions in an application form. Make sure you have crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's. Make sure you have provided them all the information that they're asking. A lot of institutions, for example, from where I was coming from, we were asking for students' personal email. We were asking for their mobile numbers. We were asking for a few more things than what probably other providers are asking, and maybe more information that probably you wanted to give to the institution. My advice to everybody is there's no harm in doing that. The institution has appointed you as a representative. They're not there to compete with you. They are there so they can be supportive of you. By that I mean, if you've provided them that kind of information, if they have a course change or something they want to broadcast to the student population, at least they have a mobile number to SMS with, and they have an email address to email to, and most institutions, as I'm aware, would want to copy their representatives into that communication, because we all play a role together. There is no separate ways here. So a completed application is absolutely mandatory. The signature of the student. Many times I've seen applications not being processed because the student hasn't signed. Oh my God, simple thing, please get the student to sign it. Online applications have a dot that the student has to check, a checkbox to say, yep, I've read all the terms and conditions and I'm happy. It's mainly because the universities want to make sure that whatever information the student's providing, they're taking responsibility for that. It also ensures that you have that support as well, legally as well. Other thing would be attach all relevant documentation. Do not think anything is irrelevant. In this day and age, every document counts. Academic documents, English proficiency certificates, recent is a good idea. Gap in studies. Oh my God, gap in studies is such a huge thing. Students finish the year 12, and after that, they take a gap year. My daughter's doing that. So what have they done during that gap year? Did they go out somewhere? Did they travel? Were they working? What were they doing? You can't be seen as doing nothing, right? Even if you were traveling, come on, you become worldly wise if you're traveling. And I have had many conversations with the Department of Immigration about this. And they've always said they have nothing against students who've got gap in studies. It's just that they should be able to document it and provide evidence of what they were doing. They don't want any fake documentation from the students. So for example, in the past, what was happening, some students would just tell their uncle or aunt, give me a work certificate or something. And the department would say, okay, fine, we'll go and check this place out. And then there was nothing. And then it becomes such a big, huge kerfuffle there. I have talked to them about students who have their parents in agriculture. They're coming from India or Nepal or someplace like that, where the parent is not really doing anything else, but agriculture is their main source of income, and the parent is heavily involved in that, and the child has decided to help them for a year. Put that on. There's nothing wrong with it. I would include a SOP for every student as a mandatory thing. A lot of institutions do not ask for it. My suggestion to everybody would be include it, even if they're not asking for it. Get the student to write a statement of purpose. What is a statement of purpose? It's really, I want to go to Australia. Why I want to go to Australia? What will I gain by going to Australia? How will it help me in my future prospects when I come back to my country? So really, if you have this written down, even if the institution doesn't want it, you can attach it with the student's visa file. Bingo, the department can read that and they get more insight into the student, and they learn more about the student that way. Because mind you, an application is an application. It's just a piece of paper. Nobody relates to it as much. You're just trying to go through a checklist by ticking them all. But hey, give them something more so they have to think about it. When you're submitting online applications, I would suggest please label the documents. Don't just put document as other, because I used to find it very difficult if I had a case that I had to look into and I wanted to find some specific information about the student. It meant I had to go through 25 different pages to find that particular thing. And it can be really a put off for anyone who's doing it. It wastes the admissions officer's time. It'll waste your time when it comes back to you, because it's coming back as another document, or even if you have access to their online system, you cannot really tell what documents you've already submitted. So good idea to label them: a passport copy, a transcript, an English proficiency certificate. Just name them as to what they are. It makes everybody's life easy. A lot of kids going to higher ed ask for advanced standing, which is great. Universities are happy to look into those as long as the application comes with a unit outline or a syllabus. Very important. So from the start itself, the student should be able to get some sort of credit. Hey, why don't I just get the student to give me the unit outline or the syllabus? I'll attach it with the application and send it in one go. And you know what? At the receiving end, I would be like, perfect application. How happy I am to work on this. And, if the application is a perfect application, the person who's assessing it, the person who's looking at it, actually wants to incentivize you as well. And they want to work very quickly to give you a decision on that application. Submit the application on time. This is a very important point. A lot of institutions have a deadline, and a lot of institutions don't have a deadline. My institution did not have a deadline for a lot of programs. So what happens is, when you receive a last minute application, let's say it's coming from India, the student has gone to India or is in India right now, I know it'll take the student at least 2 months to get this whole process sorted with the visa and all of those things. Then, hey, I don't think it's the right time to apply for this course. Maybe we have to defer. So always make sure you give ample time to the institution who is assessing your application. Generally, I think people take about a couple of weeks to get back on an application. So give them at least, a good window to work with. If you just keep throwing in last minute applications to assess, universities or institutions already have last minute requests to process the ones which are already in the pool. And obviously, who are they going to give preference to? Obviously, the ones who are already in it. For all the new ones, they will just probably come back and tell you that, hey, it's too late, apply for the next intake or something. Because these days, a lot of colleges and a lot of universities are reluctant to give, late enrollments, because it's not good for the student. Now, I want to emphasize on this point, because I know when the student is sitting right in front of you, and they're saying, hey, ma'am or sir, I really need to do this. I really need to get admission into this institution. But you know what? My transcript won't come by this date or that date, or they won't have a proper documentation ready for that particular intake. My advice would be, just tell the student, look, it's not in your best interest to do that, because you would miss out by a week or 2 weeks of your classes. The way the course starts or works in India, God, sorry, what happened here? Can you, I hope everyone can see my
We can see your screen. We can see what the institutions want from you slide.
Yeah, because, okay, sorry, my screen says your screen sharing is paused, so I was just wondering. Thank you, George.
No worries.
So really, yeah, so late enrollments are in not the best interest of the student. I would always tell them, look, don't do that. In Australian institutions, the work starts straight away from week 1. It's very heavy. They start having assessments by week 2. So really, I would not encourage that. But, you know, I want you to think about that as much as you possibly can. Oh my, what does it do? Sorry, I'm so sorry, guys. Anyhow, the next slide is about GTE or GS. Oh my God, this can never leave us now. We are stuck with this acronym, I think, forever and ever and ever. And I think a lot of institutions which were not looking at GTE, GS in the past are slowly diving into it because they're realizing how important this has become. We all know Australia provides quality education regardless of what level of course a student comes and does. If they're coming to do a higher ed course, we know the regulation body is TEXA, and for WET is ASCA. So really, why the department decided that we need to have this GTE-GS put on this whole scheme of things when we are giving that quality education to the world. Why do we need to do this? Mainly because a lot of students were staying back, a lot of students were not going home, a lot of students were doing things which were not right, they were not studying, they were working, they were failing, and they were really not progressing well, which is not fair to the student as well as to the institution, to the whole system really. So to stop that, as you all know, Knight's review happened. We came up with this SVP, changed to SSVF, but GTE and GS has remained the same. So what is GTE? A genuine temporary entrant. And what is a GS? A genuine student.
So,
right?
Swati, we cannot see your slide about the GTE, which is the next one. So I think it's still paused.
Can you see now?
No, it's still paused. So we still see the slide number 3, which is what the institutions want from you.
Okay, let me just stop share and then share again.
Share again, that's right. Perfect, now we can see it.
Okay, thank you, George. Sorry, guys, technical issues here. So what is a genuine student? A genuine student is a student who comes to Australia to study, really, obviously, and who has the capacity to pay the institution their fee, has the capacity to support themselves financially while they're living in the country, and really are there to do well for their career in life, and they have done their research, they have figured out where to go, and they have all the knowledge about what they're doing is the right thing to do. What is a genuine temporary entrant? All of the above that I just said, plus someone who says, all right, I'll do this course and I will add this really nice, set of skills to myself, and I will go back to my country and I will flourish there. So that is a genuine temporary entrant. That's what the department is looking for. But having said that, they're not against students migrating. Hey, why do we have the post-study work rights, right? We want them to get more skills before they go home. We want them to be as skilled as possible. So when they are applying for the skilled migration and everything, hey, they are the best candidates for it. But the student must have some linkages, must be able to show that, they are there to enhance their skills. They're not just coming to Australia for migration purposes only, right? So what is the department looking for from the student when you're submitting an application? Of course, the financial capacity. At the moment, the department says we want the students to have 1 year tuition fee plus living expenses that they can show right away, and they have it in their bank and ready to spend. Great. If all of you can do that. Different countries, you have to have that knowledge about those countries, their financial system. Some are cash societies, some are not. How do you make sure that everything is right when you put that application together? So there are a lot of documents floating around. Go to the department's website as well. It talks about a lot of things. Attach all of those documentations. I know universities are asking for a lot more supporting documents at the moment. If you are showing it to the university, or if you are looking at those documents for the university, I would say attach all of those documents with the visa application when you submit it, so that there is nothing, no stone unturned for the student to later have issues with the visas. Make sure the student's academic background is absolutely knotted down. So a student has done year 12, what is the progression? I'm either going to do a diploma or I'm going to do a higher ed course, an undergrad course. A student has done an undergrad course, the progression is that they would be doing something which is seen as a progression to the undergrad course that they have done, which would be a postgrad course. So a graduate diploma or a graduate certificate or a master's degree. Well, graduate certificate and the diplomas are not getting you the SSVF. I understand that, but I'm just talking about progression here. So we have to package it with something. So as an institution, we would do, they would do that, pardon me. English proficiency, again, is a big deal. We want to make sure that the students who arrive in Australia are proficient in the language. They can speak, they can hear, and they can write their English well, because the classes that are going to be run at the institution are going to be all in English, regardless of where they're coming from. Students come from Vietnam, China, India, Nepal, all of these countries have this sense that, when I'm at my university, part of my course was being taught in my language because the teacher would talk to me in my language. But hey, that's not going to happen here. Nobody is going to talk to you in your language. They are only and only going to speak in English. So make sure your students are proficient in English. A 6.0 IELTS is a bare minimum. I really think for a student to progress well, to be able to understand, when they come to Australia itself, it takes time to adjust to the accent that we have. So quite important to do that as well. This is my last slide, but here I really want everyone to remember one thing, is genuine students. When you're talking to the students, tell them about genuine students. Who are genuine students? Genuine students are students who don't hop providers. So they will not go to one institution and then say, hey, I don't like your course. My agent told me something wrong, and I read it differently. They give you all sorts of excuses. When you're at the institution's end, they tell you all sorts of things. And then they don't want to study at your institution. They want to go somewhere else, or they come from another institution to you. And I'm always questioning why. When you first came here, you wrote a statement of purpose saying, I'm going to this course, I'm going to be doing this, this, this after that. So what happened now? So make sure that you make the students understand. It's very important for them to research the program that they're going to study, to look at the unit outlines and everything, have a great in-depth understanding of the course that they're going to study. Tell them to please stick to the plan. Please complete your course in time. Do not just keep working. Just because you can work 40 hours a fortnight doesn't mean that you just keep working. You are there to study. You are investing in your career. Make sure that you study and finish your course in time. Such an important thing. How good that application will look later. They must pay their tuition fee on time. I've seen cases where students come in and say, oh, I cannot pay. I've had this problem or that problem, or I don't have the money to pay my next semester fee. I want to go on a payment plan. That doesn't look good. That doesn't good look for you guys, because the institution thinks, oh my God, we were told that the student's able to pay and the student's all good. What's happening here? So be mindful of that. Make sure your student understands that. tell them, please, I know I'm again saying this thing, working is so good. You get money for your time, and it can be very tempting for a young person to come to Australia and start earning in dollars, because at that time your mind is converting it into your own currency and you think, oh, wonderful, this is great, I'll continue to work. Please don't just work only the prescribed hours, because there are cases, and everyone knows that, which comes in the news all the time. People get taken advantage of if you're doing more than your 40 hours. And please advise the students that they should not be reluctant to come back home. Hey, this is where you were born. This is where you grew up. If you have to come back home, you'll only be value adding. You will only be looked at as coming from a country where you have upskilled yourself culturally, emotionally, professionally, and evolved into a better person to come and work in your own country. So tell them, be proud of that fact, and not be reluctant to come back home. Many a times the department would call and ask the student these questions. They need to be able to say, I have absolute intention of going back home, and why not? Hey, their country is doing so well these days. I have just returned to India after about 20 years, and it's amazing what's happening here. So I would say, advise your students that way. They need to feel there's a win-win for them. At both ends. They cannot just feel that, oh my God, if I have to return back, I've actually lost all that money that I spent, because I know a lot of students do that. So there has to be a win in both the situations for them. So when you counsel students, please do that, because that will shape them well for the course that they're going to do, and that will prepare them so well if the department picks up the phone to talk to them. So those are basically what I wanted to talk to everyone about today. I must have missed a lot of things. If I have, happy to take questions now.
Thank you very much, Swati. And yes, guys, this is your opportunity to ask questions. Take advantage of the fact that you have someone that really can give us straight answers. And then submit those ones through the Q&A. Swati, there is one that I just sent you through the chat room that we received internally that you can answer in the meantime, please.
Sorry, George, I'm not able to see that.
That's okay. It's in your chat. So you can stop sharing the screen at the moment. That's fine. It's just going into the chat session, the chat box. Sorry. Can you see it in the chat?
Yes, sorry. Okay. No, I can't say. Okay. Is GTE required for the onshore market? GTE is, look, the way I look at GTE is, yes, it is required for everyone, onshore or offshore. Offshore is heavy duty GTE, but onshore is still, I would say, a soft touch kind of GTE. So you would ask a lot of things. You probably won't ask for all the financial documentation and things like that. Carly is asking, where can we find the list of countries for assessment level? Carly, these are available on the Department of Immigration. Actually, it's called Border Security now. Their website, you should be able to see those levels there.
Department of Home Affairs actually is what they just changed.
Department of Home Affairs, yes.
They keep on changing the name every year, by the way, guys. So yes, they went from Department of Immigration to the Border Security to now Home Affairs starting this year.
Correct.
And there's another one question here that I'm sending you through the chat that we received.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I've got a question here, how the student can sign the application in the online system. All right. Most of the online systems that I'm aware of would have a little checkbox at the end of it, which says, yes, I agree to the terms and conditions of everything, which actually is recorded and kept as a signature for the student, to say, yes, we take that as a signature for the student.
There's another question by Jason. I'll answer to that, Jason, which is, where can you find the levels of the institutions? So this is an interesting question, because when the SSBF was, the framework was created, the government didn't want to actually create levels in a way that puts to compete institutions that are level 1 against level 2. But people that is in this business quickly realize that they can figure out this and understand and identify what are level 1 and level 2 institutions. In our case, if we wanted to know which one is a level 1 or a level 2, it's actually available in the Sophia application directly. When you click on the provider and it gives you all the quick links to the provider, it'll say within that information whether is an institution that is level 1 or level 2. And that is a segue into another question that I have received internally, Swati, which is, what is the major difference when it comes to documentation required between level 1 and level 2 institutions? What is the big thing that is different?
Well, the major difference is the financial documentation that the student has to provide for a level 1 institution compared to a level 2, and also the English proficiency. If you're a level 1 institution, they're not asking for English proficiency, but if you're level 2, they definitely want to see that English proficiency for a student. So really it needs to add to a 2 and a 3 at the end of the day. It's not really about only the institution level, it's about the institution level as well as the country level. So to make more sense out of that, what I would suggest is go to the Border Security's website, select the institution that the student is going to, and the country from where the student is coming from, and that will actually spit out what sort of documentations are required. So you will see a stark difference between a level 1 and a level 2.
Thank you, Swati. There is also another question in terms of, again, onshore versus offshore. And given that all the attendees today will be looking after the onshore market only, and whether there are countries that we should be more careful about even when it's onshore.
Oh dear, yes, please. I'm quoting myself and being recorded for this. So, so just saying, yes, there are countries, subcontinent. I would take Sri Lanka out of that, but subcontinent definitely is the biggest, because right now we're getting most students coming from the subcontinent. China, sort of, yes, depending on what region they're coming from. If they're from the metros, the tier 1 places in China, you don't have to worry about it. But as it moves to more regional areas, then yes, there is a risk there. I've recently been advised of Mongolia as well. Mongolia is on the rise. There are a lot of representatives that I know are working in Mongolia, trying to spread their wings there, but you've got to be a bit careful there as well. Yeah, those would be the main ones that I can think of. When it comes to onshore, I've recently heard news about Philippines getting a little bit on the radar as well. So be mindful when you see these students coming from these countries. I would say look at the application holistically. Ask for more information. My mantra is you have to satisfy yourself. If you are satisfied with the application yourself, there should be no reason why others won't be. So if you think this is a genuine case, not just because I have to get a student for the institution, but really a genuine case, it will be a genuine case. And where you think, oh, there are a few ifs and buts, and there will be many, There will be many such cases where there will be ifs and buts. You've got to be a little careful about how you progress with that application.
There's another question there from Russell and another one from Syed, Swati, in the Q&A.
Okay, sorry, I've opened the chat and I couldn't see the Q&A. I'm sorry. All right. Russell Sanchez. Hi, Russell. He says, how about students from South America? Do you think there's a big market for students coming from there? South America, predominantly, based on my experience, has been a LCOS market, a wet market. There are providers who want to expand in that market. We find there is a lot of student possibilities for wet sector and LCOS sector. And it's kind of venturing into higher ed, but not as quick as we would like to see it happen. Syed Shabi, hi there. Hi everyone, just a quick question. Given that financial statements are a key part of application process, are there any red flags we need to be aware of? Financial statements are definitely a key part of the whole process. So really, again, where the student's coming from, you need to make sure that the documentation has enough supporting documentation attached with it. So for example, a student has given you the bank statements. You don't want to see a lot of money suddenly submitted into the bank account. There needs to be coming in correct increments. So the department is otherwise going to ask, where did you get this money from? It could be that they sold a land, they sold their house or something. If they did, they've got to provide that documentary evidence as to where all of this is coming from. So it would be wrong to say that if a student is submitting financial documents which has large sums of money coming in, is wrong, but as long as you can support them with some sort of a documentation, I think the department will accept it. The only other thing I can think of is the sponsors. So when you have sponsors who are providing their financial documentation, it's very important to see what is the sponsor's family looking like. Do they have 5 kids? And a huge family to support, and the income is not as much, then you got to question that. So those would be the things that I would really look out for. Anonymous viewer, how long can a student be on a subclass 500 visa? I'm not sure. I've seen students who have come in on a visa to do their schooling now, who go on to do their undergrad course, move on to do their postgrad course. So it really depends. It really depends on the progression these days. I have seen students who have come into the country to do an undergrad course, not finish their course, and they only had 1 unit to go, but they had their visas refused because the department said you've taken way too long to finish that course. So it really, I think, is quite proportional to the course that you're doing, the duration that the course was for. So for example, a 3-year course, if you're finishing in 4 years, is still acceptable. But if you're finishing a 3-year course in 5, 6, 7 years, oh my God, no way. The second part of this question is it dependent on the length of the course, which I think I've answered. Does a student need to reapply again if they are intending on studying further? Yes, everyone has to now reapply visas. Once upon a time, we used to call it extension of visas. They're no longer extensions. They are a reapplication of visas, and they are assessed as a new application.
I have another internal question through the chat. Oh, there's another one from Liliana.
Liliana Peters. Hi, Liliana. Regarding the financials, how long does the money need to be in the student's or sponsor's account for the application? Well, generally, the department says they want to see the student's 6 months, bank statement. They say 3 months to 6 months bank statements. So we say the money should stay there for that period of time. And if they have, and in addition to that, let's say the student was coming for this intake, but for whatever reasons and circumstances beyond control had to defer, that money should remain there. They should not take it out and do something else with it. Just let it be there. It just supports the application. Sorry, George, you had a question.
Yes, it was about what are your thoughts on, say, for instance, the use of online applications like StudyLink, and how easy it is for an agent to, or a counselor to launch an application?
Oh, well, StudyLink is very close to my heart because I worked really, really closely with them. And there are other online applications that I know are there. My thoughts on the online application is, oh my God, why do we have to do paper anymore? Seriously, in this day and age, let's not do that. Let's just all be doing online system applications. If you're talking about StudyLink, oh my God, it's pretty comprehensive system. From the institution's point of view, from the agent's point of view, from the student's point of view, because it has 3 portals. So there's a student portal, there's a representative portal, and there's an institution portal, and everyone can talk to each other. So if I receive an application as an institution, as soon as you or the student have submitted the application, you can see the status of your application. The university's got it. If I touch it, it changes status. You straight away get an email to say, change the status. So you can track your application really well. You can upload documentation at the same time, as many times as you want to. You can communicate with the institution as many times as you want to via the system. And if you communicate via the system itself, you're actually communicating with the case officer, not with a generic email. I know of some institutions who are still using generic emails, but because my history is with Western Sydney, I think I'm thinking of that more so. Western Sydney had developed the system really, really well. So if others are doing it that way, it's perfect. I would really encourage everyone to use the online systems as much as you can. It makes life very easy, and it's recorded. You have a date stamp on it. The institution has a date stamp on it. When you're talking to each other as to why there's a delay and all of those questions, we're not relying on anything else. We know what's happened and when it happened. So it works for everybody, I think. There's another question here. From Fernanda. Hi, Swati. Any tips from or words of wisdom for experts going through this process? I'm sorry, Fernanda, if you can expand on that. What did you mean? Going through which process? As in going through the online system?
I believe she's talking about, you're unmuted now, Fernanda, if you want to talk.
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, guys. Fernanda here. No, I just wanted to, big picture thing. We've been in touch a lot. Pretty much every day I talk to a lot of you. And I guess that coming from Swati, again, I take my hat off for her. She knows so much about all of this that we buy to experience. And I just wanted to use this space as well for her to give us any tips or any words of wisdom that we are about to embark on this process, and something like a personal tip as per se.
Okay. I like I said, I have a few mantras. My mantra is I need to be thoroughly satisfied with my applicant before I progress any further. So that would be my tip to everybody. And there are ways of doing that. You don't have to get out of the box student. It doesn't happen, so you have to make it look like it's out of the box. You've got to do the right thing with that student. You've got to ask them the right questions. You've got to ask them the right documentation. Very important. You got to make it look like it is the perfect, ideal student. And in doing so, you have to question yourself to say, if I am the institution and this application comes to me, what would I do? So whatever answer comes to you when you look at that application holistically is the answer that you, with your experiences, would be sure that the institutions would be giving as well. In all honesty, I've spoken to so many counselors over the years, and they would say, oh, I know this one's a little iffy, and oh, I know this one's really, I'm just wanting to check with you. So it's okay to do that. Call the institution and say, hey, look, I'm just a little doubtful about this. When you do that, the institution feels you actually gave it a thought before you even put in that application, blindly. You actually gave it a thought, and you thought, you know what, I'll just call this person and ask and just discuss it quickly. So it just makes the institution feel that, yes, you are giving it your absolute due diligence. You are really satisfied with this applicant. You wanted to be satisfied with what you were doing, and therefore doing the right thing by everybody. So that would be my tip for the day.
Thank you, Swati. And I think that we are now coming to the end of today's session then. And I just wanted to thank the audience as well for taking the time to join us. I know it's late at 6 p.m. for those in the in New South Wales and Victoria. And yes, we look forward to launching for student campaigns tomorrow night, and to be able to drive quality student applications, inquiries into the application for you guys to work with. Thank you so much, Swati, for your time. I know you're in India as well. And if anyone has any questions, just feel free to, of course, reach out to Fernanda or ourselves. We will be sending you a copy of this recording as well. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time today. It was great chatting with everybody. And like George said, if you have any questions, flick them to him. If I'm able to answer something, I will definitely help. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.